The Athletic.
G'day there and welcome along to the Race F1 briefing for Friday the 7th of June 2024. I'm James Baldwin and this is the podcast that brings you all the big F1 headlines you need to know in 15 minutes or less. It's been a predominantly wet day of running in Canada, so let's get into it. Montreal has proven to be very wet so far, so this could be a right place at the right time sort of race, given the constantly changeable weather which is forecast. What we learned today is not reflected in the times, so mixed were the conditions. There was a small window at the beginning of second practice where you could run a few laps on slicks in light drizzle. If you stayed out there on softs and got the tyre temperatures up and just kept running, you'd be fast. And that's what the Aston Martins did. Hence Fernando Alonso fastest in the headline times and Lance Stroll third, sandwiching George Russell's Mercedes. It did seem the Aston could generate tyre temperature quickly, and that could be gold dust tomorrow, depending upon what weather is doing at the critical moments of qualifying and, of course, the race. But there was no like-for-like comparison. Both Ferraris and both McLarens, for example, were running around on the unsuitable, at least for the conditions, medium tyre, seemingly on different fuel loads to each other. Max Verstappen did only one serious push lap before coming in with the Red Bull on fire, with a suspected hybrid-related failure. But Sergio Perez did seem to be struggling in the other Red Bull. Then there was a lull when the track was too wet for slicks and too dry for inters. By the time it was wet enough, the track was around 14 seconds slower. In that inters phase, Alonso was again initially the fastest man on track, but not everyone was out there, and conversely, he was in the garage by the time Lando Norris was setting the pace towards the end. So, we cannot say who is where with any degree of confidence, just that the usual top four teams are in the mix. And beyond them, maybe the way the Aston works the tyre could be positive if the conditions are just right. Of more significance in our learning was the very smooth new track surface, combined with the weather forecast, has huge potential for shock outcomes. The surface dries super fast online, making the contrast in grip online to offline especially tricky, and which means it's very easy for neither a slick nor an intermediate to be suitable. It also means that drivers are very reluctant to move offline. This has all the makings of controversy and surprise. Back to the 2026 regulations now, and the teams doubt how achievable some of the FIA's objectives are for the 2026 cars, following the public release of concept images and information this week. Although the 2026 regulations have not been finalised, with approval due to come later this month by the FIA's World Motorsport Council, there was a significant announcement by the governing body on Thursday at the Canadian Grand Prix. As well as showing a first official look at the baseline concept for the new rules, the FIA shared significant details, including the car's performance profile, weight reduction objective, and new active aerodynamics. This is despite the regulations still being in flux, with some changes even being made this week, and discussions ongoing between the Technical Advisory Committee, which can actually steer regulatory changes, and on a bigger level between major stakeholders. The 2026 rules will form a key part of the semi-regular meeting between F1 and FIA bosses and senior team figures in the Montreal paddock on Saturday, the same day an FIA press conference on the regulations will be held. The message from several teams so far is that the objectives outlined in the FIA's published plan this week are not achievable with the rules in their current form. This is not a complete dismissal of the proposals, but a feeling that they are ill-defined and in need of improvement rather than a total write-off. There's concern from the teams that the cars will be too slow in the corners and too fast on the straights, meaning lap times barely faster than F2 cars, and that the weight targets just aren't going to be achievable with the engines still being so heavy. Aston Martin team principal Mike Crack described what the FIA shared as a first publication, whereas we are still quite far away from the final one. His McLaren counterpart, Andrea Stella, went even further though. While Stella stressed McLaren supports the intent and objectives at a high level in the 2026 rules, he said the draft regulations that the teams are obviously aware of in their current form are still far from being able to be achieved in the agreeable objectives and intent. One of the pressure points is an end of June deadline to approve significant parts of the technical regulations as per the FIA International Sporting Code, before F1's governance leaves it at the mercy of requiring significant agreement to make changes to major items that are likely to draw different opinions.
The Race F1 Briefing.
Now to Carlos Sainz, who really only has two options for his F1 future, and it is still unclear as to which way he might go. In fact, on Thursday, he went out of his way to correct reports that he'd already signed for Williams, and to say that it makes me laugh, but sometimes this factually incorrect reporting goes unpunished. As Scott Mitchell-Marm reports, Williams team boss James Vowles reckons it's an easy decision for Sainz to join his team rather than his remaining other option of the future Audi Works team, Sauber. Sauber and Audi have long been the favourite, and on paper, Williams would seem to pale in comparison to being the frontrunner for a brand new works team from one of the world's biggest manufacturers, one that has a rich history across motorsport. But F1 teams don't perform on paper. And right now, Audi's got even more work to do than Williams to ensure its team is competitive by the time new regulations come into force in 2026. After all, Sauber's the one with no points this season, on a downward spiral in this rules era, and looks at a loss to address its problems. Williams, on the other hand, is broadly on a good trajectory since the Doralton takeover of 2020. And Vowles, who took charge last year, has recruited the esteemed Pat Fry as Chief Technical Officer and convinced Alex Albon to commit to a long-term deal. And he believes Williams is now an entirely different proposition to 3 years ago, one that can convince a driver of Sainz's calibre to join. The fact that we're even talking to Carlos shows you that we've changed our approach, he told Sky Sports F1. We want two world-class drivers to be part of our stable going forward. We want the world to realise that we're here and we're serious. We're investing in what it takes to be back at the front. In 2026, we have one of the best power units, if not the best power unit, coming to our car. We'll announce shortly, I hope, around about 30 incredible people from other teams joining our organisation that we've been gathering across the last 12 months. The world is changing, and someone like Carlos would feature very highly in our regard in terms of the big grand picture of where we are. Of course, he has the choice of whether he wants to come here or not. That's his to make. But I think you can see all the strengths. It's easy for me to say because I'm Williams and I wear the shirt. I think it's an easy decision to come here, but it has to be his to make. Sainz has not indicated the exact criteria needed to pick either team. Whilst Audi has plenty of benefits, including the leadership of Andreas Seidl, Sainz's old boss from McLaren, Williams seems well positioned to match most of them and offer others of its own. It's a nimbler organisation, independent, and potentially can give Sainz some flexibility in a contract that Audi would rather not. It would seem illogical for a manufacturer like Audi to open itself up to the embarrassment of signing a driver who could then walk away after just a couple of years. A vote of no confidence like that in a massive money project would be awful. Whereas for Williams, getting Sainz in for 2 years is already a huge victory, and it would then be in the frame to keep him if the progress that's promised is made. Ultimately, neither team is a stunning choice for a driver of Sainz's calibre. They are two of the bottom three teams in the championship, with poor recent track records, for good reason. Sainz is picking between the least worst options for his next career move. But within that context, Williams is compelling. It talks a good game in the long term, backed up by strong leadership and clear investment from its owner, but with the low-hanging fruit seemingly there for the taking in terms of weight gains and a terrible 2023-24 winter that surely won't be repeated, it could make ground quickly in the short term too. Sauber, meanwhile, has had such a relentlessly terrible season so far, there is little reason to hope for the same. It now has the slowest car on average. That's what Audi is taking over. So, competitively, the argument for going to Audi is weaker than it's been since F1 plans were made official in the summer of 2022. In 25 and 26, there's a real chance Williams will do better than Sauber and then Audi. Enough to give Sainz all he wants? Probably not, but it might be better than many think. This is not a prediction of a 2014-esque Williams surge, but it is conceivable that Williams will have the best engine in F1 and have improved so much it can produce a good chassis enough to take advantage of that, regularly score points and maybe snipe for the odd headline result. That's why, even though Vowles is surely aware of the appeal Audi will have to signs, he can be genuinely confident that Williams is making a legitimately good case in its own right. Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you for your company today. If you'd like to get stuck into more from the weekend, the best place to do that is our website. For now, though, I'm James Baldwin, and this has been The Race F1 Briefing.
The Athletic.
As you've probably heard by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code The Athletic, and you'll get a 1-year subscription to The Athletic, plus up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code The Athletic. Make your first deposit of at least $10. Place your first bet on any game and claim your voucher for a 1-year subscription to The Athletic. See BetMGM.com for terms. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., Mississippi, New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona. 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts. 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help in Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code The Athletic, and you'll get a 1-year subscription to The Athletic, plus up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager.